Okay, is everyone ready? Bring the meeting to order. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
I'd like to discuss public works decals and company vehicles. And I'd also like to discuss grinding down roads, especially Sinclair and Nickel. I know it won't be an action item, but I just want to discuss it.
Okay. Anyone else?
I've got a letter we received today from the Vermont County Sheriff about an upcoming meeting that's going to happen before we meet again. So I want to get it right into the record.
Okay. Anyone else? None. Are we prepared to approve the meeting minutes of August 30th?
So, Mr. Chairman.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Rosemary, all yours.
That's a highway equipment note for the salt truck. The amount of $89,422. It's at 1.99% interest for 5 years. Annual payments of $18,895. There's the notes and the highway equipment borrowing resolution and the tax certificate that needs the board signatures.
Which trucks is
The salt truck.
the salt truck? Okay. What's board pleasure?
I believe it's going to be delivered this month sometime.
Not much we could do about it, it was already approved, Mr. Chairman. We just have to rally the signed paperwork.
So moving it?
Yes.
Second? Second? Discussion? None. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Anything else?
And the third week of September, Susan and I are going to go to the annual Clerk and Treasurer's Conference in Vermont. It's on Thursday and Friday.
Sounds a nice place to go for them.
And then it's a couple of years.
Not the same week as Town Fair.
No, the town fair is in October.
I think it's the first week in October, but I think they've got some board meetings and stuff to start in the last week of September, but I have to review their package.
Is it in person or is it still virtual?
Both.
In fact, we need to select the designee for the town. Anybody wants to attend?
We will have one more meeting before we have to submit it. Yeah.
Are you all on the mailing list from the league? Yeah, okay.
The one where they summarize a whole bunch of different things from the league. I don't think so, actually.
I'll check. And
No,
coordinate with
I
you.
know I'm not actually.
Okay, I'll forward the note out, but thought it should go to all board members.
Yeah.
Anything else, Rosemary? Anybody got any questions for Rosemary? Okay. Before we jump into yours, Brian, maybe you want to just check and see if everything has zoomed in.
Let me see. No, I don't see him.
Okay.
Is anybody on Zoom that I should add to my list?
It's just Green Mountain Access TV, right?
Okay.
Well, first thing you bring it up is the procurement.
So, this is, I made a couple updates to our procurement policy, primarily changing the dollar amounts to kind of be in line with Open front porch forum. I don't think I've got anything that I can send from my phone. Let's see, primarily I've updated the amount to be a little bit higher before they trigger the additional oversight to make it a little bit more manageable. The other piece that I added was for our committees that would give, rather than giving purchasing power to all of our committees, which we don't want to do. What we can do is allow the people we designate as purchasing agents some oversight over what we're classifying as incidental purchases. So those are purchases of less than $1,000 and within the budget of the organization. And that should make it so we're not handing out purchasing authority all over the place, but not create such a burden for our volunteers so that they could still get some assistance without having to wait too long for it or jump through too many hoops. Those are, the main changes that I've made to this since the last time.
Evan is on this.
Okay. I'm gonna go unmute Evan.
So all the changes you've made, Brian, you have track changes on so we can see them in this copy.
Yep. It's a black and white copy, so they're not highlighted in red or anything, but they're there. So Donna, Evan did join.
Yep. Heard that.
Evan, if you're able to hear us, we're into Brian's report now.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. So the very first thing we're doing is we just started the presentation of the procurement policy. Brian went over a few changes, updates that have been made.
So this brings us pretty well in line with a lot of the other ones that I've seen. Our dollar amounts aren't really anything unusual. Let's see, some of the things that I've seen that we aren't doing for the exemptions or the exceptions, we call them. Some people have listed public works equipment. I don't think we need to. I think that our, when we talk about sole source purposes, when we talk about, some of the other professional services, I think we're okay. And we're usually, at least seeking other bids. We don't always receive them. But we're usually at least in conversations with other firms providing our equipment. So I don't think we need to carve out a specific one for equipment, but that's not an unusual carve out.
The only edit that I suggested was the one I just told you about a few minutes ago.
Yeah. And so for everybody on that, that's modifying our purpose to include that this also provides accountability for those with purchasing power. And I don't have the exact phrasing on that, but we'll have that worked out.
So
Two questions. Is that? Trying to think of an example, but I'll just use any committee member, committee chair. It doesn't necessarily have that number that is on the, but that's purchasing authority involved in that. They want to buy something, whether it's Cajun flowers, Tuesday Night Live, pepperoni, tool for Johnson Rec. They buy a bunch of stuff in advance on their own card and they get it first, but that's not really within the policy.
We really want to discourage how much we're reimbursing people and reduce that. That's has not been a point of abuse, but it is an area that could be difficult. It is difficult for us to monitor, and it could be a point of abuse in the future. So we want to reduce that. What this does to make that a little bit easier, so that not every single purchase has to be brought before the select board, is that purchases less than $1,000 can be approved by anybody who has purchasing authority. So that would, for most of our committees, that would probably be Rosemary and myself, that somebody could come to us to seek permission to make the purchase.
Okay.
But they should be seeking that in advance of the purchase.
So for the folks that are accustomed to doing that, because that's kind of how we've done business over time, could we kind of give them, next time they make a request or submit receipts, because I've done it myself, like.
Yep.
Um,
And we'll work up a better separate policy for dealing with reimbursements and petty cash and things like that, but.
So I'm just asking that the next time they come to us with receipts, say, hey, this is cool, because you've done this in the past, but this is the new way of doing it, top to X, Y, or Z first. And then,
yeah. It'll be a learning process, but we have to start sometime.
the other thing is if somebody just goes to, this is a member of a committee, needed something from Johnson Farm and Garden, I just went and said, I charge this to the town of Johnson, such and such committee. I was nobody, I didn't think. The Johnson Farm and Garden is just, they're just good folks who trust us, who trust people, so. to discourage that, is that what the policy?
We should discourage that. It's
They have a
another.
list of people who've been approved to charge.
Okay. How large is that?
Our. That's about it.
I'd like, yeah, you can.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I'd like to, if we could, highway committee, highway and Lisa. if
Yeah,
she's
she
on.
said that. Corporation has wrong.
Yeah, I'm just suggesting anybody that's not on the procurement list would be taken off of that.
Okay.
Right, that's what.
What's the last business?
So. Good.
Well, yeah, that brings up a good point, because if all of these people are purchasing agents, we don't necessarily want them to be the one in authority to tell the committee that it's okay to get whatever they want. In other words, like, as a recreation coordinator, beautification should go to Lisa or something, that should go for you to you and Rosemary. Maybe we could clarify that.
We could, rather than calling everybody purchasing agents, we might create a separate designation for, Rosemary and myself to have that granting power. And again, this is only granting, it has to meet two conditions, that it has to be less than $1,000 and be within their budget. If they're going over budget, they're gonna have to talk to the select board. If they're making a big purchase, they're still gonna have to talk to the select board. This just it prevents us from getting bogged down with too many, smaller items.
That is a good idea, though. Every committee have their own designated purchasing agent. I think that's what you just said, right? It's difficult to hear with these masks on, but Do you want more separation so you feel as if you could take them off, or you just want to wear them no matter what?
Use it
We
as-
can separate more and give you more space if you'd like. It's just difficult to hear with masks on, that's all.
Try and speak up. Yes, I think it's a good idea to have a designated person for a committee.
That's a good idea.
I like that idea.
So I'm thinking about like Tuesday Night Live, they buy expensive speaker equipment sometimes, live equipment. The Ted Alexander project, we had folks making commitments that weren't on the list, but then those committee members would have to go through that process.
If we were to implement a purchase order type of system, how would that work with this?
It would depend on how we implemented it, but I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be compatible. If we're implementing a purchase order system, that should just make it easier for us to have an opportunity to review things before we're committed.
So the difference with a purchase order, if I understand it correctly, is the purchase could not be made until somebody, whatever benchmarks we set for authorization, that person signs off.
Yes,
And so
But that's only if all payment goes to the purchasing through accounts payable, essentially, Rosemary. So that means that nothing could be paid for outside. And I think this constraint you're talking about, nothing could be paid for outside of that process.
Purchase order is the best process.
I mean,
it's the best process to have from a security standpoint. It might not be the best process to have for. Again, we're still a relatively small community. We don't have a large staff. I think it's very much worth investigating because a purchase order system provides so much security that we have to include it in our process and our decision-making process. I'm just not sure that it's gonna be the best fit for us.
Well, I think it tightens the whole system up much better than any other process, and
Yeah.
and especially in light of this situation and all the public pushback, like, what are you folks gonna do about it? What are you folks gonna do about it? This is a good way to tighten it up.
It is, and this won't interfere with it if that's the decision we decide to make.
Right.
could a purchase order be anything over a certain threshold?
Yeah.
So like if it's less than $1,000, wouldn't be a purchase order, let's say.
yeah, I mean, the reality is that, I think the reality is, I could be wrong actually in saying this, but the reality is that most people who are spending money outside of these listed people, and actually even I would argue some of these listed people, almost all of the purchases are gonna be under $1,000.
And maybe that's fine.
I just wanna make sure that if we're talking about a purchase order system, I wanna make sure we're talking about it for the right reasons, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
But what about, like, the agents, anyone on the highway department's an agent, they can stop in at Farm and Gardens and pick something up that's needed for the town.
They are not agents, just the supervisor.
Just the supervisor.
That would, we still have, again, we've got our incidental purchases that they can make. They can make purchases of less than $1,000. And we've got the fact that for Farm and Garden, a lot of these other places, they bill us. So the rank and file are not typically making big purchases anyway. Rank and file are picking things up.
Sounds off blades or something.
Yeah,
Cut something.
or and even when it's more expensive, it's usually something that the supervisor has ordered. And they're just the ones who, whoever's got a home and whoever's free is gonna go, run to farm and garden or work with the parts store or wherever and actually pick it up, but they didn't make the purchase, they're just.
So if we get culverts, depending on when they come in, it could possibly be anybody goes down and fix it up, but the one that places the order is gonna be one of our pre-approved.
Yes.
I did mention purchase orders, one of our last meetings, and I'm glad you picked it up down there. Brought it forth, I appreciate that. Because it's not in your procurement policy. It's
No, like I said, it is compatible with using purchase orders, but this is not a purchase order system.
But we can plug it in here though.
Yeah.
Would be a good place to plug it.
I don't think we actually have to make any changes to this. I think that if we just start using a purchase order system, I don't think this needs to have any changes to it.
Right, but it is still our procurement policy. I think it should be inserted in there somewhere. Wouldn't take much to do it.
We've got a clear idea of the other changes. If we do want to make more changes to this, we can. It's just a policy. We can make any changes we want to it at any time. It's not good practice to be making changes willy-nilly for no good reason, but.
Yeah, so let's use this as a starting point or step, the next step.
Yep.
Approving this, and then we can look at further purchase order processes. Because that's a process you have to apply. You have to do it on the fly.
Yes.
Does Evan have anything?
Good question. Evan, do you have anything you'd like to add?
It mostly seems like a lot of this is already being done, so I don't see the big change. And I know that there was a big push for this because we needed it for a lot of grant writing. So I don't see anything wrong with it.
And yes, that's a good observation that, this is mostly following, there's not any huge change to our practice. It's codifying it and taking in some of the feedback we received from our first pass, which said that, well, at our first pass, both the board and some of our volunteers felt that it was going to be too much of a burden. So I added the piece in there about, that smaller purchases don't need to come to the board, they can be approved by somebody who does have purchasing authority.
Well, smaller purchases already don't come to the board, but they would still be in the warrant, right?
Yes, I believe so, Rosemary. Everything still will show up at the Rosemary's nodding. I don't think she shows up on camera, but
Because I'm just giving an example. Like right now, I don't know, the town building purchases water. We don't approve that. That's a small purchase. But we see in the warrant, or the public highway department purchases grease or an impact gun. This is already the practice we're doing. It's just writing it down so that we can get grants easier, correct?
that's a primary purpose. It is, I think we have a pretty good practice around procurement, around controlling, making sure that for bigger purchases, we have enough eyes on it. I think we do a pretty good job, but this codifies that, and that's a requirement for a lot of grants. So. So I'm not looking for adopting changes tonight, or I'm sorry, I am looking for adopting changes tonight. I've got a suggested language change for our purpose statement. So I don't think we're ready for signatures.
I'm sorry, Brian, we're not ready for signature. Why?
I've got a proposed change to the purpose statement.
That's not before us.
Say again?
That's not in this here.
No, that's not in this. I just got it.
Can we just move with the change?
Yeah, if you like.
No, I think the next step after this is that the library is waiting for us to pass this so we can do the MOU with that.
Yes.
So I'll move to proceed with the procurement policy with one modification or addition in the section 1 purpose. Add to provide accountability to all purchasing agents, comma, in the last sentence.
Motion to approve it to change to section 1. Is the second.
Is that your only change you're gonna make, that?
Yeah.
You gonna add anything about purchasing, having,
The purchase order?
Yeah.
Well, Brian was recommending that we do that as a separate policy.
well, he mentioned that, but I also mentioned it is our procurement policy, and it should be inserted in here somewhere.
What do you recommend?
Well, we're gonna find some place to stick it in here. Anybody got an idea?
If we're going to insert that, I'd recommend a little bit more work we put into what we're doing around the purchase policy, or a purchase order system.
Well, we could approve this tonight with that addition that Beth had, and then we could revisit the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd second that.
Motion second. I'm guessing we would not sign it tonight. We would have those changes made and come in and sign it.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion on that? Evan, you have anything you want to add?
No,
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? The ayes have it. Building sidewalk.
So I circled back and I got a little bit more information from Troy about the proposal for doing the sidewalk at our building. So he's been in contact with Dale Tatro. The specific scope of work will be just the sidewalk between the parking lot and the up to the side door where we had to have the sections removed. He thinks that some of the cracks and those are all kind of off kilter, that a lot of that is left over from frost heaves caused by a poor foundation, poor seating for the cement slab when they were originally set. So he wants to take them all out, redo the foundation for them, and then reseat that whole sidewalk.
And Troy is available by phone if we want to call him in for any questions.
Well, this is in excess of $5,000. And if you add the village and town share, it is $5,800 and it's $2,900 for the town, correct?
Yes.
We only have one bid, so we're already in violation of our procurement policy if we approve this evening.
I think the way Troy explained it to me, that they keep a valve was they were gonna have Tatro in town to do some side work. Anyhow, that's when they brought it up to them. They can get it done in 2 weeks. Within a 2-week window, they have an opening, but if we don't do it now, it'll be next year project.
We have talked about this all summer long, getting this straightened out. And at the 11th hour, we're given one individual to do the job for us. And it's, well, we gotta do it now. We just have to do it. So we're being forced into a situation right now. And I've never liked it when you spend $5,800 and you don't get 2 bids. And like I said before, I will never approve this. And the rest of the board can go along with it if they want, but I don't think it's right.
I think part of what you're referring to is there was nobody taking the lead.
Right.
You know,
In retrospect, I tell you, I thought about this quite often. Yeah, I wish I had taken the lead on it as soon as the snow got off the ground. But I'm not gonna approve anything that doesn't have 2 bids.
and I think where it did finally come to light was we had a complaint from some of the seniors because of the lip, the tripping hazard.
I know, I feel bad for anybody that could possibly trip on it, but, you know, we dropped the ball on this road. By not getting this done, and I don't like being forced into a corner and say, oh, we're gonna approve this now. Without 2 bids, I don't think we're being responsible for the town's money. You could argue too that somebody trips, they're gonna sue the town or something like that. The insurance company will take care of that.
The problem we're into now is it's a recognized liability, and we acknowledge it. And if you don't do something about it, we would potentially have a loss if somebody got hurt.
I talked to Will the other day and he said he'd get another bid. He talked to you?
No. Okay, so as I understand it, they're ready to go forward. The village has already approved their share. It's in the select board's court. Is that correct?
Yes.
What's the board's pleasure?
Still think $1,500 is for a lot of money for that.
When is the 2 window we're talking about?
Right now,
What's the quote? How much?
$5,800.
Yes.
All right, well. I understand what Mike's saying. On the other hand, sidewalks are more of the expertise of the village than the town. They have come to us with this proposal. I trust their expertise. I wish we would have had 2 quotes. But we do have a small window of time and it's tough to get things done in this environment. Even in the best of times, it's tough to get things done between 2 boards. So I'm going to move that we approve this for
The town share $2,900.
the town's share of $2,900.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I reluctantly second, and only because of liability. I tend to agree with Mike on principle, but
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Evan, did you hear the motion?
I did. Mike also said that he had talked with Will. I mean, they've had over a week, which is quite a bit of time for a bid for that small amount of work. I don't think the village did their due diligence.
Exactly, thanks.
Okay. The
I
basic,
heard the motion and the second to answer your question.
what's that?
I heard the motion and the second to answer your question.
And you felt the village didn't do the due diligence, correct?
Well, if the town decided to repave the parking lot and we expected the village to pay for half of it and we came to them with no time, I would hope they do the same and hold us to a standard.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
Nay,
Nay,
and the chair votes in favor. Motion passes.
Do we have to do a roll call when? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, go by a roll call. Nat, how do you vote?
I forget, aye.
Aye. Mike, how do you vote?
nay,
Beth, how do you vote?
Aye.
Evan, how do you vote?
no,
nay.
Nay, okay. And the chair votes. Okay, so the motion passes. Town paving projects.
All right. So you've got our bid for kind of miscellaneous paving projects around town. Chief among them, the library, parking lot, the trench on River Road East, and the, what do you call it, the the manhole and sewer access that have been repaired along Railroad Street. So this is, we did seek multiple bids for this from All Things Asphalt, from Hutchins, and from I think it was Slater in particular. All Things Asphalt is the only one that was interested in returning bid. So we have sought multiple bids, but we haven't received them.
You only put it out to 3 people then.
Jason talked to some others, but I don't know the names of the companies that he spoke to.
Well, you only mentioned 3 this evening.
Yes, I only have definite confirmation of 3 that we talked to.
According to our new procurement policy, it's over 10,000 should be sealed bids.
Well, value of over 10,000 or more must follow sealed bid processes outlined below. We did not do an RFP for this.
What's the board's pleasure? You want to do an RFP or keep the only one that's submitted?
Again, that seems like a lot of money for the paving that we're getting. I would go no on this one also.
You want to put it out for an RFP?
I'd like to.
Board's pleasure.
Yeah, I agree.
We do that, we time enough for. Season?
I haven't been given a deadline by All Things Asphalt, so I believe that we will have enough time. It might be a little bit shorter window than we often do, but
Okay.
Again, we're kind of boxed into a corner here.
and we've been seeking multiple bids for this and trying to get the work done for a while. We just haven't had any interest. And I think when we started, we had a fewer parts to this. The cost had risen.
And a contractor we had in town to do plot road was not.
No, they're one of the ones that we saw it and they declined to even put in an offer. They were already here in town.
That's too bad.
And like I said, it's been really hard for us to get anybody interested in this project.
Because it's not big enough.
Yeah,
It's gonna continue to be hard with the grant money that's starting to go out for infrastructure, I would imagine too, so probably next year is not gonna be a lot easier.
Okay, fine.
Do you think, Brian, if we do an RFP, we got enough windows this season to complete?
I said we might do a little bit shorter one than we typically do.
And what do you mean, post it for 10 days or? something?
Yeah, I think that something like that, like a 10-day window, make the due date, 5 o'clock a week from this coming Monday, so that we get bids before
Our next
our
meeting.
next meeting and approve it at our next meeting.
Is there general consent among the board to do that?
Yeah. These two stopgap portions around the catch station, the public works group would do that very easy.
That,
That and play compactor, we could straighten that out, lickety split.
Evan, you in favor of that?
Yeah,
Okay, so I guess we'll go that route.
There is an exception in our procurement policy for if time does not permit the use of sealed bids, which could be argued right now. But anyway.
Yes. We could, if time does not permit the use of sealed bids, we can go with competitive proposals, which we tried to do. And I was expecting it to be less than 10,000, but
Section F exceptions. 2, sole source purchase. The select board determines that there's only one possible source for a proposed purchase. It may waive the bid process to authorize the purchase from the sole source. Knowing where we are right now with where contractors are at and what they're able to do, I think it could be easily argued that it's a sole source purchase. And we just need to get the stupid thing done. Probably along, but I'll move that approve it.
We have a motion on the floor to approve the bid from LL Things Asphalt. Is there a second? Backing a second, the motion will fail.
Yeah, good with that.
Motion fails. Okay, go out for an RFP. The purchasing of salt truck, that's one we just did.
Eric, may I? I'm sorry. I just didn't know when I should speak
Okay, what do you got?
for the last agenda item. Gina and I had met with you several weeks ago at the library and had showed him both the paving that needs to be done in the parking lot, which you just mentioned. But then now that we've kind of revitalized our outside space with a picnic table back and a picnic table out front and bike rack and railing that goes up to the side yard or steps that go up to the side yard, we're realizing that we're getting a lot of traffic on the side of the building where there is a sidewalk size swath of pavement that's obviously not meant to be a sidewalk or walking path, but is ultimately being used for one. And it's in really, really rough shape. And when Hugh came and met with us, he said that he'd be able to get in there and regrade the earth and then try to get that repaved for us. I'm not sure if he ever came forward with that to you or to you, Eric. And I'm sorry if I'm repeating if he already mentioned that, but that's kind of been a concern on our minds. It would help with both foot traffic and potential major ankle damage and also flooding. It's clearly from floodwaters and from the some pump being pumped out right there. So I just wanted to bring that up. It's been on our radar. We did make the effort to reach out to Hugh and realize that maybe that got dropped.
that didn't get dropped, that did get added to this. And that it is in this new proposal. Like I said, this had been kicking around for a little while we were trying to get somebody willing to do it. And that would be one of the things that help grow the cost a little bit.
Okay, so that would be part of this,
It is,
it already is.
yes.
I'm sorry that I just,
So we gonna do the
We're gonna do the site work to prepare for
site
it,
work?
but we are gonna bring in a paver to actually pave it.
What is this from back parking lot to the picnic area?
yeah, so we have a
Okay.
picnic table out back underneath the tree.
Under that, yeah.
And then we have a picnic table out front, and if there's overflow parking, that's usually where people park, is down behind the building, and then they are starting to just walk up through the yard, which is quite lovely, except for the major tripping hazards.
That's all you had?
That's all I had, yeah, sorry
Okay,
that I
yeah,
just.
well.
I just gave a picture, that's all.
I guess.
No,
It's now we're-
Yeah, no, it's good. It sounds like a good. That's gonna improve pedestrian access, reduce hazards.
Mhm.
It's a good part of the proposal.
Yeah, okay,
Uh,
thank you.
Yep,
But
no problem. Okay, the next one we're already dealt with, Historical Society planning.
All right. So in your packet, you have a letter from Dixie Mate.
Eric,
Yeah, I haven't.
you said the next one we've already dealt with. Are you talking about the salt truck?
Yeah, that was the paperwork we had to sign with Rosemary. That's probably before you zoomed in.
Okay. So are we signing it for the 67,000 or the 65,000?
80,
Fair enough.
it was not paperwork you had emailed to you.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. 86,000, something like that. 89.4.
So the rest of it, I'm sorry.
Have you haven't signed it?
I have.
Okay, have you signed it?
I don't want it.
All right, Historical Society. So the Historical Society is interested in pursuing kind of they're taking their interest in occupying the entire building to the next stage, and they are looking for formal authorization from the select board to act and evaluate options. So kind of looking for a commitment from us that we want them to pursue something that will be ideally revenue neutral for them to take over the whole building.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
In their letter, they say that the select board appointed me to this committee, which was 4 months ago. That's already commitment to do this work. So what do they want from this letter that we haven't already given them?
That exactly was my position. I thought when we made your appointment, we were endorsing it, but apparently they want us to take a formal vote authorizing this work to be looked into. I think it's belts and suspenders.
That's I think a good analogy for how I'm seeing it is, and my conversations with Duncan and Dick is that it's, yeah, belt and suspenders is a good analogy.
So what's the board's pleasure?
If we already gave them the belt, you might as well give them the suspenders.
Yeah. Is that a motion?
Got a motion, Evan?
I motion that the board authorize this committee to come up with a plan to not cost the taxpayers any money if the Historic Society would want to occupy the second floor.
It's a tall order.
You
You
don't
might
have
want to say cost neutral or something like that in your motion. Because they do cost us money to make a contribution. But then they do it in lieu of taxes too, so.
So maybe the motion would be this third paragraph. Our goal would be, this committee would have it presents a cost neutral detailed plan to the select board, including but not limited to costs of needed renovation, costs of compliance with state and federal regulations for public access, cost savings, utilities, and cost avoidance to the town, improvements needed to continue as a rental unit, allocation of costs, payment in lieu of rent proposed. That sound all right, Evan?
It's not what I said.
Okay, forget it. I was just making a suggestion.
I appreciate it, but they've already been given the belt. My motion was to give them the suspenders, I guess. Nobody asked to second it.
All right,
We do have a motion on the floor from Evan. Is there a second?
so what is the? I understand it's suspenders. I'm curious what the language is. What, do you have it captured?
I guess what he's got is to authorize the committee that he's on to come up with a plan to not cost the taxpayers any money for the historical society to occupy the second floor. I probably have to adjust that wording a little bit, but that's what he said.
So that captures it, Evan?
Yes.
Okay, I'll second.
We have a motion is second, any discussion?
I've got some discussion. Well, this has been discussed, and I think we should do it. There's also a more pressing issue, I think, with the roof of the Holcomb House. They've talked to us, it's come before us at least once that there's a leak. And Duncan has done some looking into it and suggests that it could be an insulation issue. And then we have two options. We can either do our best to keep the snow and ice off the roof all winter long and prevent an ice jam. If there's no leak, then it's probably caused by the heat loss, or we could just go ahead and do it and have it re-insulated and insulate the wall and that area of the ceiling, so that it doesn't create more ice dams and more water damage and cost us more money. So I think that's a higher priority at this point.
That is on our agenda tonight, so the next item.
Thanks.
Yeah, well, we already got the getting salt. We're not getting the big.
No.
Yeah.
About 3 trucks this year.
3 trucks.
Yeah. These are these two trucks right here we're signing tonight.
That's a salt.
Right, but there's one, it's 65,000,
Okay.
two, and then with the trade-in is 24,200. That's 89,422. That's what this note is for 2 trucks.
No. One's the body and one's the truck.
These trucks come in 2 parts.
Oh, we got it.
So we have Evan's motion on the floor. We have a second. Any other discussion? See none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed? Ayes have it. Holcomb House repair. Now we're gonna go into what Nat just talked about.
That's what I said before.
So, let's see, we've met with Dana, what's Dana's last name?
McKnight.
McKnight. We met with Dana McKnight, and he gave us some, he did a preliminary inspection and gave us some suggestions about how to proceed for making improvements to the roof that wouldn't necessarily require us to tear the whole thing off and start over again. I suggest that this will reduce the leak that we have seen you recall, we did experience a small leak the year before last. When the house were occupied, there was ice dams one weekend that we had to go up and deal with. And then there was this last year, a little more significant leak. It's possible that there's an insulation problem in there, that we might be able to fix this. But in the meantime, I think over the winter, we probably will want to monitor kind of what's on the roof, especially in that area. But I would like to pursue having data out to take a crack at fixing the repair, completing the repairs and insulation.
Did he indicate he'd be able to get to that this year?
That's
I know.
really up in the air.
Yeah, he's booked out till 22.
I think
Booked out, but we have a
we have a plan.
procurement policy.
Exactly.
The theme.
And where's the bid on that one too?
I expect this one to be less than $10,000.
But still, we ought to have at least two bids on anything like that. 5,000 said 2 bids.
Yep. I don't have a single one yet, so I don't know what the cost is.
Yeah, well,
But I expect it to be less than 10,000, so I don't think that we'll have to go out for an RFP.
I'm getting kind of sick of this, to tell you the truth.
Well, to be fair, it does say major purchases of $5,000 to $10,000 are select board approved. It doesn't talk about the number of members. Large purchases are 10,000 or more.
We, for something of this size, we would not need to and would not normally do an RFP.
For construction projects over $2,000, a statement that the contractor will provide with a copy of the most current wage determination must comply with the Davis Speed Act. That's the only difference for construction.
For all major purchases between 5 and 10, price and rate quotation shall be obtained from at least 2 qualified
Okay.
vendors.
Yep.
So that's right in there.
Okay, yep.
So what's board's pleasure? This
Negative.
out for RFP?
Yes,
Yeah, well, I would recommend that we don't put it up for an RFP, but that we seek multiple bids.
yeah, that's good.
Because again, we don't even have a single quote, just, I'm gonna go out and get multiple quotes now.
Okay,
And if it looks like it's over 10,000, I'll put out an RFP for it, but I don't anticipate that being the case.
then you bring something back to the board.
Yes.
Cemetery maintenance.
All right, Duncan Haskins is willing to continue cemetery maintenance for another year. It has been a while since we've gotten multiple bids for this. But I don't see any reason why, if Duncan isn't changing his rate and he won the process when last time we went out for bids, so I don't anticipate there being any change to this. I do not have a formal offer from Duncan this year.
How much do you pay in a year?
We have allocated, I believe it's up to $8,000. But Duncan is pretty good about working with us so that
He does whatever we,
you know, he asks each season, how much money do you want me to spend? Does that many? Kind of winds up his free time and how much money he has to spend and does that many gravestones. He is still in the Whiting Hill Cemetery. I've been out to Evergreen Ledge with him a couple times, and there's some that we'd like to get to him. We'd like him to get to over there too. I don't know if that'll happen this year or if there'll still just be enough to do at Whiting Hill.
it's board's pleasure. Do Duncan's contract. or not?
Again, this should probably go out to bid, shouldn't it?
We have taken it out for bid.
I think.
Duncan won the bid process at that time, and his prices have not risen.
I think he was the only one that submitted one.
We did actually get a bid, a competing bid,
We did.
but Duncan had, as I recall it, the price was about the same, and his process was better for old stones.
Duncan's doing a wet and forget sort of treatment that is a lot less expensive and quicker. And I think other folks were doing many fewer stones and taking much longer time, so. All things considered, I think we should hire Duncan. I'll move that we hire Duncan for another year to do cemetery maintenance.
The motion, do we have a second?
Boy, it's a lonely night. to be-
Second, I'll second that. I'll second.
Come on, I wanted to.
It's okay.
We
don't
have a
get
motion and a
it.
second, any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
Evan, okay, we'll go roll call. Nat, how do you vote?
Better vote aye.
Yeah. Your motion,
Doesn't mean anything.
how do you vote?
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Nay.
Beth, how do you vote?
Aye.
Evan, how do you vote?
Aye.
The ayes have, it. Motion passes. Tractor parade,
Tom Carney has proposed a tractor parade on October 2nd, running from River Road east at the Manchester property where the tractors will gather, and run up to Legion Field. He doesn't need much help from us, but in order to run that short section of Route 15, he will have to get a state parade permit, which the town will have to request on his behalf.
what date was that?
October 2nd.
Did you say second or seventh?
Second.
Okay.
Okay, what time of the day and how long?
Wouldn't be terribly long, they're just going across. And I don't think we don't have a time of day yet.
Okay,
Want me to call him, see if that's.
yeah. So we know it's from Manchester lumber yard out to Legion Field. What's the board's pleasure?
Love it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Are those motions and seconds?
Sorry.
I guess we have a motion and a second to approve the tractor parade. Any discussion? None, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, speed limit ordinance.
All right, so you've got the updated speed limit ordinance in front of you. We do not have, as of right now, a speed limit. We don't have any speed limits set on Ogback Road, and we don't have the speed study completed yet for Ogback Road. I've been in touch with LCPC a little bit. I'm hoping that we'll have that done, that we'll have results from that soon. In the meantime, we could send this out for legal review. I don't think it's going to be expensive or difficult to do. This is mostly just a copy of the, this is a model policy provided by the state of Vermont. But it's always a good idea to go for legal review for anything that has a fine attached to it.
Why would we really need a legal review?
It's a good practice for any ordinance.
Brian, which of these have changed?
Since the last time you've seen it,
Yeah,
so the last time you've seen it, there haven't been any changes to this.
okay, and then there is an old version, and do you know what the changes are of the old version? Like, I think it's just a list somewhere.
The old version is, I didn't bring a copy of that in front of me. The old version is a lot more difficult to read. The list of roads is not as detailed about which roads and which sections of which roads have speed limits. And Roger, other folks have complained that Roger has complained that it is difficult to enforce our existing speed limit.
Sure, I get it. I'm just wondering, what is the impact of this to existing roads? Are there changes that would be in effect if we adopted this?
There is one speed limit change. Sinclair Road, Sinclair is currently 35 miles an hour for the length. And Sinclair Road is now
25.
25, but not for the length of it.
100 feet to Rocky Road.
Yes, thank you.
And that's based on a traffic study that was done, correct?
It is.
Advised as a result of the traffic study.
It is the advised change as a result of the traffic study. We put up a speed study on Sinclair Road and found that the 85th percentile of traffic is traveling at 25 miles an hour or less.
Okay.
Which is the, oh, I don't remember the name of the, it's the federal organization that recommends, the Federal Road Engineers Organization that recommends speed limits, recommends setting your speed limit equal to the 85th percentile, which in this case is supported lowering speed limit.
So is speed surveys done for all of these that are 25 versus others that are 35?
We don't have evidence one way or the other. I believe, and this is one of the reasons why it'll be good to have a legal review. I believe that since we haven't changed any of these in a very long time, that we should be able to enforce all of the other ordinances based on prior practice, that these limits have been set for a long time. And if this was an inappropriate limit, it should have been brought to our attention.
It doesn't seem like there's any rhyme or reason on why some are 25 versus others are 35. Western Road is 25, Duke's Road is 35. So why? Why is Collins Hill 25?
It's only 25 till you get away from the village, and then it's 35.
Yes.
Grove Road is 35.
I can tell you Collins Hill is that way for safety reasons. It's pretty
It's very
treacherous
steep
driving
in
on
that
that
section.
hill.
River Road East, that would be what, by Manchester property?
By Manchester and McClure's Farm. Or out further, but no, you're asking probably about, yeah, 25 miles an hour up to about the end of the Manchester's property.
I'm just curious. It seems like there's not a lot of rhyme or reason why some are 35 and others are 25.
Don't argue with City Hall.
We are a city hall.
And do our
And you do argue. Okay. But you're gonna send me off the legal review.
With your permission.
What's the board's pleasure?
I think it's a waste of time. I think it's pretty boilerplate, but I'm sure I'll be helpful.
Brian,
Go ahead and say what?
question was gonna be for Brian. It seems like this is mostly spurred on by making things easier for the sheriff's department, I guess. There's no actual requirement for us to change anything. Is there?
I don't believe so. I think that this is to make our speed limits, its primary purpose is to make our speed limits enforceable.
And has this been passed through Rogers to see if it's enforceable?
I sent it over to Roger. I'm going to look to see if I get comments back from him.
Okay.
Isn't any ordinance enforceable? Like, I feel like, no.
There's
It's
certain,
been changed to St. Clair Road, nothing else is the same.
some of these weren't enforceable before, why would they be enforceable now?
I don't know.
I think it was the way our ordinance was written and the way that the descriptions were organized.
But there's also some signage requirements, you know, how many feet you have to have signs.
I believe that's part of the problem also, which is something that we can improve on. A lot of these roads will only have one speed limit sign on them.
Okay. So, with pleasure.
I feel really uncomfortable voting on it. I feel like I need to recuse myself, because the only speed limit that's changing is the one on my road, and I don't want there to be any perception that I'm trying to influence that and not. So there are recuse myself.
Well, we're still waiting for a study to come back, right, for the hog back,
Yep.
and
We can't approve it tonight.
Right, but you're talking about doing something with it.
we're talking about having a lawyer review it.
There you go. I'm recusing myself.
Do we need to vote on that though? Like
No, we could just direct the road. If it's
Yeah, if I-
consensus.
Consensus, I'm pretty comfortable.
You're not really in favor of sending it to legal review.
Anyway, but
Evan, what are your thoughts on sending it for a legal review?
I think if it's mostly to make the Royal County Sheriff's job easier, and they're the ones that want it, they can pay for legal review because we fund enough of it.
Others.
good luck with that one, too.
Right,
But the thing is that, okay, well, we have some ownership in this too.
it's our ordinance.
It's our ordinance.
We were just talking about paying for legal review.
We're just talking about right now, typically whenever we write an ordinance, before we enact it or approve it, we send it to the attorney.
I understand that, but there's no massive change and there's no gain to taxpayers by paying for this legal review, so.
The ordinance is a major change. It's just the speed limits have not changed,
With one exception.
with one exception.
St. Clair Road to Rocky Road.
The ordinance before was pretty poorly written.
According to,
Sheriff's Department.
You know, it was hard to enforce. In fact, I don't believe they were enforcing it.
Well, and if you look at it compared to, I think I looked at one point, because we looked at this back a while ago.
Yeah.
And I think I looked at the League of Cities and Towns, because they have templates for some of these things. I assume you're using a template.
This was a template. I think that I got this template from V-Trans, the lead,
Okay.
but
But I don't know if you've seen the old ordinance. It is pretty rough, I will say.
I guess the other counter to Evan's point is we will, with a better written ordinance, we will be able to collect more revenue from speeding tickets. There's no guarantee how many we'll get.
Yeah, good luck with that one, too.
it would depend on hours of patrol, if that was the case.
So basically, you just got the boilerplate from V-Trans and plugged our roads in.
Yes,
So if it's been run through V-Trans, why do we need legal review?
Probably don't.
I think it's best practice, but
The board feel comfortable, just, but we really shouldn't approve it tonight without the hogback road anyhow.
yeah, because the process for making modifications to an ordinance is much more difficult. I'd really rather we wait till we get the data from Comcast.
But we should also run it through Roger to see if
Yeah.
it's something they feel is enforceable. Sure it will be.
Right, let's run through Roger, and then when we get Hogback Road done, bring it back to the board.
I have 3 questions. and, get Rosemary at some point.
Okay. Move back around, Rosemary, at the end. Some questions?
So then the last item up on the agenda is kind of thinking about financial policies kind of writ large. All of our different practices and ways that we can make improvements. So I printed out some kind of basic information sheet provided by the League of Cities and Towns. It's got, that they support in general looking for GFOA standards and adopting a lot of these policies. They do point out that not all of these policies are going to be applicable or useful in small communities. And they strongly encourage that we spend a little bit of time thinking about our goals with the policies we're looking to adopt, so that we can really hone in on what's appropriate for us. And all of these kind of introduce friction and make the process a little bit more difficult with the purpose of increasing security. So if we have a good understanding of our goals, we'll have a good measure of how much difficulty does this increase versus how much does this meet our goals, so we can evaluate processes and policies that we want to
So one of the examples is a review of the town's internal controls. May reveal areas of weakness. Who would do this review? That some outsider, VLCT?
ideally, we'd seek an outside perspective. The OCT probably wouldn't perform it themselves, but they could help us find the contractors who could. If we have to study our own, it's not a very objective view, and it's very easy. I'm thinking about our procurement policy, and when we went a long time without a policy for that, it was very easy for us to think we were doing a good job without really being able to prove that we were doing a good job. So that I think we were following it, and we were doing a pretty good job of, seeking bids when appropriate and getting multiple quotes from people, but we don't have any evidence or proof that bringing somebody in will help us out.
Do we have any ballpark or something like that, Colin?
This is kind of new ground for us.
What's it cost not to do
Yeah, that's the question. It is.
it? I think we know that answer.
Yeah.
We know, we want to exactly.
What the board's thoughts? Should we seek the lead for some people that can do this kind of stuff? Come in and do an internal review?
I think we should not only have a review of policies and practices, but I think we should have an audit that is not a standard audit. And it's, probably not cheap, but I feel like it's an important investment in making sure that we're sound financially.
When's the last time we had an audit? It has. So we definitely. Oh, we did. Some.
We already signed.
Been longer.
They got questions.
Any questions on
Questions.
We've talked about doing the audit a couple times at around town meeting, and, you know, we bring in our elected auditors. So we have some oversight, but I think we benefit from a more complete audit.
Thought we were on a cadence of every other year or something like that,
Yeah, I would recommend we do it once we start, do it this year.
every single year. You have anybody that you know?
There's lots of firms.
Well,
We
that's
should
good.
know them, like, I mean, that's part of the thing, is that we should not hire somebody that anyone knows.
Well, no, yeah, I'm
Reputation wise.
aware of firms that do the work. So how would the board like to proceed here? I mean, that's one thing we should be thinking about, is having a real town audit. Thinking about bringing somebody in, to do a review of our controls.
Yeah, I'm all for it, I think we definitely should do
You're for
it.
both?
Both the controls and the money, the fund audits, yeah.
Evan, what's your thought?
I think we need to know what this is gonna cost before we willy-nilly say, go do both.
Unfortunately, this is a thing here that we really need to do, and we're gonna have to put it out to bid, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But this is something that's very important. It hasn't been done in a while, and it needs to be done.
I think we should, not just go out to bid, I think we should actually have an RFP, and we agree on what's in the RFP.
Right.
I think we should all agree on what we're trying to accomplish.
I was being simple with it, putting it out to bid, but that's basically what I'm looking forward to.
Can you guys bring something forward?
So we'll try and bring for the next meeting RFPs. And again, I'm going to encourage you to think about between now and then, we'll kind of, with your permission, start the discussion next time on kind of needs and priorities for what are we looking to get out of it. You know, that will help us spend our money well and write a good RFP. If we've got goals in mind when we start, you know, we'll be able to do a better job. But I wanted to be kind of mindful of our meeting tonight, and I think that that's kind of a longer discussion.
Okay, before we get into the additional items, move back to Rosemary, there was a couple of questions that a couple of them the board members had. Would you like to go first, Beth, or?
Yeah, can I see the packet? Sorry. I was curious if the picnic table, it's allocated to the rec committee, but is that actually an open center or is that rec committee?
So it's a picnic people for outside here at the office.
Oh, okay, even though it's dressed to rec, okay.
So that's not really a rec budget thing.
No, it's not.
Okay.
No, as I recall, we just had Lisa arrange for the purchase for us because she was familiar with it.
Currently, it's at the welcome center, but I was gonna bring it over here.
Okay, thank you. There's a invoice here. Mike Patch, no. is that-
That's Howard signed it. It's from my-
Okay, there's an invoice here from Mike Patch. And there's penciled in amount. for $692, wait, that's a total, penciled in additional $50 for culvert. It doesn't look like it came from Mike. Are we confident we have whatever that's for? Better answer than Rosemary.
They put a culvert over at the local center.
There was one there, I don't think it got replaced.
Oh, maybe that's what it's for. I just think it's odd that it's penciled in like any kind. Yeah.
Yep, no, it's good. I think it's appropriate for us to ask about it. I have a vague recollection of that conversation, but not enough to.
Speak to it. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yep, thank you. And then I'm gonna shoot that stuff. And then the RL Valley. What are those invoices? What are these for?
Gasoline.
Fuel.
Okay,
Make fuels.
okay. Good, that's all I got. Thank you.
I would get confused when I see the RL Valley, so for whatever reason, it always escapes me that RL Valley is Maple Fields.
Yeah, it's okay, we'll still go one of them, but it's like $18 for one billing event, and I mean, I can put like, well, very little money in my tank for $18. I mean, very little gas.
Well, it probably was a gas can for,
Yeah, I think most of the trucks now are diesel.
yeah, so they would have the diesel at the
Yeah,
site, but they, any gas for the chainsaw. Right? Didn't you had a question?
No,
You're not gonna ask it.
no.
Okay, thank you. That $50 though.
yeah, I'll follow up with that.
Okay, public works decals.
Yes.
Sticker still on it.
As you recall, a while back, we signed director's orders in the tune of in excess of $900 for some artwork or whatever on the side of the new truck. It says Public Works Department, Johnson, Vermont. I don't see any reason that the town has to spend that kind of money for any kind of decal, anything on any truck that we have. And I move and all, if this is a concept I have, and I can have maybe a drawing or something by next meeting. They're just a simple decal, you know, Public Works Department, and you know, it's circular, Johnson, Vermont, in the middle. It's a marked truck, it's what it is. We don't have to go to great big graphics and everything else and spend $900 to put Johnson, Vermont Public Works Department on our trucks.
This is like a peel graph.
Yeah. Morrisville Waterline had them, and they've had a stack of them, I think, that when I got there in 1977. And I still think they have some of them left, and they still work. And if you notice any of the gold, green and gold, water and light stickers,
Yeah.
that came out of a stack. They're in a box, you pull them out, you peel them off, you push them in the middle, and you just separate them out, pushes all the air out, and they're perfect. And I'm sure that they cost a little or nothing. And we can decide, I mean, you understand the concept. I mean, I can make a drawing, we can figure out what colors we want, and go out to a vendor and get a bunch of those. And we can get enough stickers to last 50 years.
Yeah.
Without spending close to $1,000 just to write Johnson, Vermont Public Works Department on our trucks. I mean, granted, it looks fancy, but we don't need it to be legal.
Well, it could look fancy with a decal.
Get a
Really,
fancy decal.
Yeah.
Sure.
I like it. Good idea.
Do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Evan likes it too, pretty sure.
He did.
Pretty sure.
Oh, you're on the phone with him?
No, I'm just telepathic.
No.
Okay, grind roll.
Well, there's a couple of things here that's bothered me for a while. And, we have people in our community that have been kind of put through a ringer for a number of years. You know, Scott Meyer and his wife, on the St. Clair Road, Frankfurters. You know, when the Frankfurters moved to town, they could walk straight out into the road. Now, with all of the years of pavement being built up, water comes into their house. We have the same problem with Scott Meyer's place. All right, it's all built up. I think that we really owe it to a lot of our community members. They have problems, no fault of their own, just because we have buildup of pavement. You look at what's going on 15, they're grinding that right down and taking it down. I think that if we have some money in the near future, that we ought to look into a couple of these roads and grinding them down and putting the pavement where it was before, so our taxpayers don't have this aggravation. So that's my piece on that.
We did do the reclaim on Plot Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not something we do every paving job because there is added expense.
But you go by Scott's place, you see how much that was built up there. Go by Frankfurters, you know, and you see how it's all built up, and it tilts right up. Water goes right into their garage. You know, that's unacceptable for them. You know, should be ground down, or at least by some of those driveways where the problem is, it should be taken down. Maybe not the whole road ground, but you know, we could make a study of it or whatever, see which ones are bad, or maybe it's just as cheap to grind the whole road down. So.
Yeah, we need to keep that in mind when we're, especially when we are putting new pavement down, because that's when we have the terrible problem with that. It's the street road that's on there.
Yep. But yeah, you're right, it is a lot of business.
Okay, so we'll try to keep that in mind when we do paving jobs. Reclaim.
And also too, it makes a better, I made a mistake saying also too, that's. The deal is when you take it down, you get rid of the cracks. Because when you put pavement on top of pavement on top of pavement, if it's already cracked, it's just gonna crack again. You take it down, and what they're doing is that they're tamping that down up there, and they're driving over it for a month or two, and which really makes it just like concrete. And when they scrape that down, I mean, just drive by it, watch them scrape it, just like concrete. So that way you get a better base and you get a better road, and it's gonna last longer. And also you're getting rid of an aggravation.
A few years ago, they did reclaim Clay Hill, you know, right in front of my house. And I think it was around 10 inches of asphalt.
Cool.
And if it was any more, the machines that they have couldn't even dig that deep.
Well, it's gotta be that up by Scott's.
Yeah, well, they did the whole thing.
Well, they didn't dig it down far enough then. Because you see the problem he has up there.
So they dug it down, but it's not like they take the material out, it's still there. They reclaim it and then they put pavement over it.
Well, they just have to keep digging down until they can get it. You said that machine wouldn't get all of the pavement up?
It did, but
Okay.
if it was any thicker, it wouldn't have been able to.
Right, but they gotta haul some of that out of there.
Yeah.
They just can't grind that stuff all up and then put pavement up on top. They gotta pull that out and bring that down lower.
Okay.
We'll make, when we're making paving decisions in the future, we'll make sure that we keep that in mind. I will also say that our biggest way to combat that is our improved techniques for ditching and steering water, because we can't retain the water inside the road. We have to get the water off the road. And so we need good ditches to run the water away from people's homes.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Vermont Sheriff's letter.
So we got a letter from the Wall County Sheriff's Department inviting us to September 16th meeting at 6:30 p.m. to discuss long-term community needs for law enforcement. Meeting will be held at Green Mountain Tech Center in Hyde Park.
That's a lot of stuff.
This is a law enforcement. I'm just trying to get, I think a lot of people knew about this, but it hadn't been kind of put out there, so it's making sure that, you know, kind of reading it into the record.
So you did already send it to us?
Yeah.
I don't have it on my calendar.
That's what the text is.
Yep, at 6:30 p.m.
You know a little bit of the background on it?
Yeah,
You want to share
I'm trying to think. How specific I should be. There is, I don't want to be too opaque here, so I want to reveal what I'm supposed to talk about. There's another town that is interested in contracting with Vermont County. They're in a bit of a pinch, so they need help. And so this is, that was sort of a impetus to start a larger conversation with other communities in the area about what their needs are, how they might be served by the Vermont County Sheriff's Department, or possibly even municipal contract. Which might be beneficial to us for a number of reasons. So there's some really cool possibilities happening. It's big changes that are going to happen. Could be kind of, if we don't watch it carefully, there could be some downfalls for us, but if we're really involved in it, I think it could be some real opportunities for better coverage. I don't know if that's too vague, but hopefully.
I don't think you got in any trouble.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the last item on the agenda. Was there any other items I want to bring up? If not, Evan, you all set?
Yes.
Okay. I hope you're not drinking a beer during this meeting.
Seltzer.
Okay, stand adjourned at 8:30.
Didn't have to.